Welcome everyone. This is our first post-school outcomes community of practice of this school year. We did 3 last year and 2 the year before, so it's really great to see lots of folks joining us today, lots of familiar faces. And with that, we'll go ahead and start with what we have today for you. Okay, so our agenda for today is first we're going to talk about our statewide post-school outcome survey results. So as you all know, the survey closed on September 30th. It always takes about a month to finalize our data. So our data are now final, and that happened around the beginning of November. So we're going to talk about our state outcomes. And then we're going to ask you guys kind of how the process went in your LEA. So we have a few questions, and we'll provide a quick link to a Google Doc so you can just jot down some answers. You don't have to answer all of them, but we would love your feedback. And then we're going to spend the bulk of the time in breakout rooms. So in the past, we've had 3 breakout rooms, but this time we're going to have 2. So the first breakout room will be essentially a website walkthrough, our post-school outcomes website walkthrough. So if you are unfamiliar or haven't spent a lot of time on the website and you want to become more comfortable with it, then that might be the breakout room that you choose. And then breakout room 2, we're going to really focus on your LEA results for this past post-school outcomes survey. So we're going to be looking at what is called the full report and helping you sort of break that down and using a guide along with that to ask some questions around your results for your LEA. And then we'll come back together, share out a little bit, have a bit of a wrap up, and then there's a quick feedback survey for our evaluation at the very end. So with that, I'll present our state data, and maybe you've already been on the website and taken a look at this, but I kind of wanted to start with this and talk about, well, our first and foremost, our survey response rate. So all of the text here in bold is our actual results for this year. So that was the 2025 post-school outcome survey. Remember, those were our students that left our LEAs in 2024 and have been out for a year. So our survey response this year was 52%. The last several years, we were holding steady at 54%, and we dropped just a tiny bit. But I do want to, shout out to all of you that really participated in the survey process in your LEAs. I would say many small and medium-sized LEAs really have done a lot of work around the PSO surveys and really have helped keep our response rates going. Our larger LEAs are a little more challenging. So we saw a little bit of a dip in our response rate. So in terms of our outcomes, so indicator 14A, if you remember, are the percentage of our exiters that attended a 2 or a 4-year college and finished a term. So this year, we actually increased in indicator 14A. We had a 20% of our leavers successfully completed a term in a 2 or 4-year college in comparison to 17% last year. So that is the bright side of our data, I would say. And then indicator B includes those students that successfully completed a term in college. But now we are also adding to that number students that met the criteria for competitive employment. So that 20% is added into what then turned out to be 60% for indicator 14B. Now, last year we were 61%, so we were off by 1 percentage point, a little bit lower this year for indicator 14B. Now, indicator 14C is, again, we take the data from A and B, and that gets rolled into C, and now we are adding any exiters that did any kind of further education and training. So maybe it wasn't a formal college, but it was some sort of further education and training, like adult ed, for example, or our tech colleges or other certification programs. And then we also add into those data for C any other type of employment. So students might be employed in a family business or self-employed, or they're not meeting that 20-hour-a-week criteria for competitive employment. So that number this year came to 79%. and last year we were at 81%. And we like to call indicator 14C kind of students engaged in some sort of meaningful employment or further education and training. So this is an important number, right? So we let LEAs know, and we actually score LEAs every year on this indicator 14C along with the response rate. So you'll see that come out in those letters in February when you get your annual performance determination. So we were off by a few percentage points. So that leaves our non-engaged students, right? And these are the students that I think we worry the most about. What are they doing? So we had a 20% rate of non-engagement. That means that those exiters didn't meet any of the criteria for A, B, or C. And that number was up by 3 percentage points, 2 percentage points from the year before. It was 19%. So we have a little bit more students in that non-engaged category. But when we, and of course, these are all students that left their LEAs in 2024 with an IEP in place. So what I mean by that, all students, all disability categories. But when you start to look at the data by different disability categories, it starts to look really different. So I really wanted to draw your attention to this. So which former students, which exiters are not engaged? Let's take a look at those numbers. So we know our exiters that had the disability category of multiple disabilities were 78% not engaged. That means they didn't meet any of those indicators A, B, or C. Our students with the disability category of intellectual disability were not engaged at a rate of 52%. Pretty high. Our students with autism, they were non-engaged at 35%. And remember, we're kind of comparing this to the 21% of all of those exiters, right? So these are our disability categories that have much higher rates of unengagement or underengagement. But contrast that with our students or exiters with specific learning disabilities, that number is much lower. So typically our students with specific learning disabilities are engaged in some form of employment or further education and training, and their non-engagement rate is quite a bit lower than the average. And then we looked specifically at our students who typically stay in our LEAs till age 22, right? So these are our students that we know are in our post-high programs, and they age out when they reach that maximum age of eligibility at 22, and that unengagement rate was 61%. So that's a pretty high unengagement rate too. That means about 6 out of 10 of those students are not meeting any of those indicators. So just some food for thought. And of course, these are state averages. So you can also look at your own data and filter by disability category to kind of see where your exiters that have these disability categories or these exit types are doing in your LEA. So now we would love to hear from you guys. So I have 4 questions here. You don't have to answer all of them, but we just want to get a sense of how things went this survey season for you all. So how did the PSO survey process go in your LEA this year? So just kind of general question about how it went. Did you get the response rate you were hoping for? Did you have a higher response rate this year, a lower response rate? Maybe depending upon how you participated in the survey or approached the survey process. Another question was, what did you find in your data that surprised you? So if you haven't looked at your data yet, that's okay. You may not have known that it was even available, and we'll get to do that in the breakout rooms. But if you did, what surprised you about your outcome data for your LEA? And then the last question, what would you change for next year? So knowing what you kind of know or have experienced this year going through the process, what might you change for next year? Again, you don't have to answer all of these, but whichever one speaks to you. And there is a link in the chat to a Google Doc. If you wouldn't mind just quickly jotting down some answers, we ask that you at least put your LEA name before you answer so that we have a sense of the size of your LEA and where you're located. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a few minutes to do that, and then we'll come back and have a little share out. And hopefully everybody can access the document. Let me know if you can't. You should be able to. Crystal, will you let me know if I'm sharing the right tab? Sometimes it's hard to see. Am I sharing the tab of the Google Doc where folks are typing? Okay,
Yep,
great.
yep.
Thank you. Okay, I think I'll give folks about another 30 seconds and then we'll discuss a few of these, but thank you so much for your input. All right. Well, it looks like so far some folks were very happy with the process. Other ones maybe not so much. It might be that you changed from using our contracted interviewers, SRI, to maybe trying it all yourselves and realize that, it definitely takes a bit of work, I think, to set that process up in your LEA. Other ones chose sort of a hybrid approach. Sometimes you get folks that said that they were willing and wanting to do the surveys during the summer, and then maybe were not able to, or folks changed jobs. So those were some of the barriers, I think, or some of the challenges in this process. And then in terms of response rate, I definitely, we notice that the smaller LEAs obviously tend to have higher response rates. They have less exiters to reach out to. Um, the larger ones, like for example, Jordan School District, they still got a really high response rate for being a large district, but they've been doing this for a while and kind of know kind of how to get this, how to get that high response rate and start early and kind of keep at it all summer long. And so I think some of that is that messaging. I've noticed a few of the response or the feedback here was that, people just aren't picking up the phone, right? And this survey is still done by phone, and I think a lot of that is a couple of things. One, it's kind of prepping students and families that this phone call is going to come their way, letting them know at the last IEP we have template letters and materials for that. So kind of, creating that culture in your LEA that everybody knows that the post-school outcome survey exists and that it is coming a year after students exit. So making sure that they know that, communicating that. Um, and then also updating phone numbers, making sure you have multiple ways of contacting students a year out. What else? What would you change? Let's see. Granite School District tried initiating additional ways for families to respond. I would like to revisit that conversation. Yeah, we still, at this point, we don't foresee it changing in terms of, going from phone calls to an online survey. Some of the reasons for that is we really have to ask follow-up questions and tease out um, exactly, the status of a student to meet those, to make sure that we're meeting the correct criteria for those data points on indicator A, B, and C. That is kind of tricky to do on a survey where there isn't somebody talking. And along with that, we also really like that qualitative data, those last two questions, asking students what positive experiences in high school really help them meet their goals. And in a minute, Crystal's going to talk about a big study that we did on 5 years of those qualitative data. And then also that question about, what are some struggles and challenges that students or exiters are still encountering trying to reach their post-secondary goals. So that's an opportunity to still be able to kind of, provide some supports, reach out some resources to those families. So I would wish I had time to read every single one of these and talk about them, but for the sake of time, I'm going to move on to our next slide. So I'll stop sharing this and share my slides again. And then I'll let Crystal do the next couple of slides. All right, Crystal, go ahead.
All right, thanks. So we had this opportunity to work with our Utah Education Policy Center, and I heard an echo. Is that because you were unmuted, Lavinia? Are we good now? Okay. Okay, good. Well, I don't hear an echo anymore, so hopefully it's all good. So we had the opportunity to work with our Utah Education Policy Center out at the University of Utah and take a look at, like Lavinia said, those 5 years worth of the qualitative data in our post-school outcome study survey. And then they ended up doing a mixed method study where they also looked at how the themes that came out of that qualitative data related specifically um, to actual post-school outcomes in employment and education. So it was a really cool experience looking at our data in that way. And the top 7 positive experiences that came out of that question, thinking about the things that you're doing now, what is something positive that happened while you were in high school that helped you reach your goals? There were 7 top answers to that question. Supportive school personnel was one. I think that one is really important because we're talking about people in the school, not just supportive people in the student's life. Special education supports, academic programs or courses. We were really hoping that CTE would show up as its own thing, but the way that qualitative data works is everybody uses different language to talk about things. And so we definitely saw a strong theme of career and technical education in this set of answers. People talking about different vocational classes or pathways, career awareness or support. So being able to kind of do some of that career exploration. Personal growth included things like opportunities for self-determination, decision-making, graduating high school, doing the actual work to get a diploma was one of the things that came out. And then extracurriculars was one of the strongest predictors, or another one of the strong positive experiences that people talked about. And that could have been sports. Sometimes it was like drama or music. Sometimes it was other clubs. But extracurricular activities in general was a really strong finding that we had. So you want to go ahead and go to the next slide?
Yes, I know.
Um,
I know this print is really small, but we're going to provide you with this one pager that has all of this in it
yes.
in the
As soon
chat.
as I'm done talking, because I can't do both at the same time, I will put the one pager in the chat. But these are the definitions that came out of the study. So if you want to know what we mean by personal growth, ways students grew personally from their high school experiences, things like building social skills, self-advocacy, developing strong work ethic, increasing confidence and motivation. So these are the definitions for those 7 areas if you want to know more. And I'll put that one pager in the chat so that you can download it. And then I will also put the link to the full report in the chat if you'd like to go and read the full study.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you for
turn this
that,
back to you.
Crystal. Yeah, we just thought this was great to take our own data from our state, and all of the answers that we're hearing in response to that question from our former students and parents, and then they really applied that to outcomes. And um, this is a great thing, I think, to share with other educators, general educators, and parents, administrators in your settings to know what works. Okay. I do want to point out, some of you probably already have this linked, but we have a Padlet. It's called our Indicator 14 Padlet, and it kind of has all things post-school outcomes. So you can find some demo videos there, data and report guides, all of the recorded communities of practice that we did last year and the prior year are all there, including slides. There's also post-school outcomes communication tools. So what we mean by that is, one pagers. There's even a small video that you can share out to families and students so that they are aware of the importance of the survey. So they're more likely to pick up the phone and they don't think it's a, telemarketer or something like that. Tips for finding hard to find youth, survey questions. So there's a lot on that Padlet. The QR code should work and the link, maybe someone can put that in the chat for me. And that way you all have
Emmy already
it.
did.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so we are almost at the top of the hour, and really, I feel like the bulk of this community of practice is really for you all to share what's working and also, to ask lots of questions that are relevant for you and your setting. So we do this through breakout rooms, and in a minute, I will put up those breakout rooms, and this time we have two. So again, that first one is just a walkthrough of the website. So if you're brand new, whether you have an account or not, but you're not feeling very comfortable with the website, that might be the place to start. If you are comfortable with the website and you would like to dive into your data, we're gonna in group two, room two, we'll be pulling up the full report and kind of walking you through that. And then we can, answer questions, ask questions during that session. It would be great if you choose somebody in the breakout room to maybe be the note taker or spokesperson, because we will come back and just have a quick share out. So I've provided two Google Doc links for each one for each breakout group, so you can capture some things, or if you have some lingering questions or takeaways, that can be shared on that document, and then we'll share that out with the larger group. So I think what we'll do now is we'll all go ahead and put up the breakout rooms. And we'll probably spend about 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes in those groups. And then we'll come back, share out, and then we have that final feedback survey, a few other slides with some information, and that will be it. Okay, is everybody back? I can't see everybody, so I'm assuming everyone's back. All right. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I thought we'd take a couple of minutes if folks want to share or if you have some, lingering questions. You're welcome to unmute, or if you want to throw them in the chat, that's okay too.
The other breakout room just came back.
Okay, great. All right, so I just thought we'd spend a few minutes maybe sharing some takeaways or specific questions that folks might have around the website or the reports or the data.
So
Time is
from
yours.
our breakout room, I just want to bring a couple of things that were pretty consistent. Most of the people in our breakout room did not have a login. And
Okay.
so we talked about using the request login from the website or emailing you to get a login. Is there anything else you want to say about that? Is there
Anyone in
anything
your
else?
breakout room you're
No, I
asking
mean
them?
you. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
asking you.
me. Oh, I just encourage as many people to request an account so that they're aware of it and can look at data. Also get involved, on in the survey process itself when that time comes. And we kind of advocate for having these conversations to get ready for next year's survey. We kind of start talking about that more specifically in around February, March, where we really want to have conversations about like how that survey season is going to look in your LEA. And in order to do that, you have to have an understanding of how this all works in the website. So yes, and any teacher, admin, school counselor, they can get accounts as well so that they can access these data for your LEA.
Excellent. I forgot to say that part. Thank you. The other question that came out of our group, because I was the one taking notes, was how do they access the training if they are going to have people do it? And so we talked about how that usually happens after they decide how they're going to. But do you want to explain that a little more?
Yes, absolutely. So we encourage that you start having conversations in March with your special ed director, or if you are the director, with other folks that are in your LEA, whether you call them PSO survey coordinators or transition specialists, whoever those key people are. And it really looks different in every LEA. Um, and then whoever is going to do surveys in your LEA, and those can be paraeducators, admin assistants, teachers, they just have to watch a recorded training that takes about 45 minutes, so that we know that they understand how to enter the survey data and also ask the questions and kind of do the survey with fidelity. So it's not a lot of training. It's a 45-minute recording that we have on the website. And that's essentially it. And then folks that are off contract, so teachers, paraeducators that are off contract in the summer, can receive a $20 per survey stipend. And then that's paid out at the end of the survey season, which closes on September 30th. And we'll have a lot more information around that, especially in our March community of practice, when we're really kind of, getting ready for kind of strategizing, how that survey season is going to go in your LEA. So we'll have lots more information for that.
Those were the two big questions that came out of our work group.
Okay. Any from ours? I know I was kind of walking them through the full reports. And any lingering questions for group 2?
No, but there was a question in the chat, Lavinia, regarding it says if we do, and I'm assuming it's if we do the survey, do we pay the stipend? And the answer is no. The stipend will come from CISA 7 in Wisconsin. It'll get transferred to the person completing the surveys. And it's $20 per each successfully completed survey that's done during the survey window.
Great. Okay, if you have more questions, please put them in the chat. I'm not going to have time to go through a few other slides, but these are slides that I kind of do for every COP. So, and these are also on the Indicator 14 Padlet, so it's nothing that isn't available in other places. But I just want to shout out for the next one. Our next community practice will be January 13th, same time. I'll create a new Midas course for that with the same link, the same Zoom link. And before you all leave, if you would please fill out the feedback survey. This just allows us to look at, what's working, what's not, your suggestions moving forward. And again, this community of practice is, really for you to ask questions and make sure that you feel comfortable with the whole survey process and the data from our survey results. But if you take a minute to please fill that out before you log off today, that would be great. And thank you so much for attending. This recording will be put on the Padlet if you want to circle back to it or share it with other colleagues as well.